So to start off, I just want to share that this session is just to go over basic library research skills that we want all BSN students to know. It's just the very basic overview of the tools that you need to be successful in this course and others as you complete your RN to BSN. So some of this might be review, particularly if you have taken courses here at Delhi before, or if you've taken courses at a different institution. Some of it might be the same. We did change our library management system over the summer, so some things might look different, even if you have been a student at Delhi before. But again, just going over the basics. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see what I'm working with. Okay, so just to start off, I want to introduce you to your librarians. I'm there in the middle. On the left is Amanda Calabrese. She is actually our formal nursing librarian, but she is on maternity leave this semester. So you won't see any of her this semester, but as you move through this program, she will be somebody that you will be in contact with, I'm sure. She does a lot of great work with our nursing students, and she will be there along the way to help you out. But in the meantime, while she's gone, the other two librarians here are picking up a lot of her work with the nursing students. So you can feel free to contact myself, or Jenny Collins is the other librarian who's going to be teaching the sessions for this class later in the week. Either one of us, feel free to reach out if you are having issues with this class or any other. So just to go over basics, this is what we're doing today. 4 main parts. First, we're going to talk about CINAHL and Milo. These are databases that you can use when searching our library resources. Secondly, we're going to talk about considering your search strategy. We're going to talk about what you should do once you are in those databases to get the best results. Number 3 is how to access the articles and other resources once you find them. How to link to full text and actually get the resource that you found in the database using those search strategies. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about who to ask for help. How can you contact a librarian or find other assistance should you need it? So that's basically our roadmap for today. So the first thing I want to do before we jump into the databases themselves, and I start showing you those, so I kind of want to zoom out and think about library resources from a bird's eye view. And I show you this chart. I personally am a visual learner, so this chart's very helpful to me. And when I was a student, I found that it was really confusing when my librarians talked about databases versus journals versus articles. Like, what does all of this mean? What's the difference? And I think that as librarians, a lot of times, we work with this stuff every single day, and so we're so embedded in it that we forget that sometimes it can be helpful to step back and actually define what each of these things mean. So I'm just going to go over some of the jargon to start off. So this chart kind of gives an overview of the content that we provide access to at the library. So I want to start down here with the tangible content. By tangible content, I mean things that are here within the library where I am sitting right now. Things like books on the shelves, DVDs, our reserves, anything that is loanable within the library. Now, you guys are online students, so some of this might not pertain to you. If you do happen to live close enough to Delhi to stop by, you're more than welcome to use those resources, but just be aware that they do show up in some of your online searching, and you may stumble across those. You guys are going to be more concerned with the rest of this. So our online resources, we have articles. That's mostly what you're going to be using for your research in the nursing program. Articles are held within journals, so you can see that's sort of the hierarchy there. And then other things that we provide digital access to, we have media, so that's going to include things like images, videos, audio content. That stuff will show up in your database searches, as well as ebooks. And then all of these things are held within databases, which are these bigger circles here. The library actually provides access to about 117 different databases, so there's a lot more than 2 here. If I had enough space, we would make circles for 117 of these. When you think about databases, the analogy that I like to use is think about a database as one of those crane games, you know, that you see in arcades, and I don't know, I always picture them in Denny's because our Denny's restaurant that I went to as a kid had a crane game. But picture the database like the crane game, and all of this content inside, the articles, the ebooks, the media, the journals, those are the prizes. So you have different types of databases and you have different types of crane games. You have subject-specific databases and general databases. First, I want to talk about subject-specific databases. This is going to be something like CINAHL. CINAHL is your nursing-specific database. Think of that as like a crane game that only prizes in there are, let's say, basketballs. So you have some that only have one specific type of content. It's going to have media, ebooks, journals, articles, things like that, but these are all going to be related to nursing. Whereas we also have more general databases. So these are going to have a little bit of everything. Think of this like a crane game that has a variety of different prizes. So you might have some basketballs, some nursing articles, but you might also have, you know, teddy bears or stuffed animals or rubber ducks or superhero toys, bouncy balls, things like that. So the same way that there are different content in those crane games, you have different content in different databases. Some are general and have a mix of different fields. Others are subject specific. So we have, you know, like I said, CINAHL for nursing. We have specific vet-sci databases, criminal justice, any program that we offer, we have some specific databases for those. So we have a variety of resources for you to use. Then we have this big circle out here that says Milo. Quick show in the chat, how many of you have used Milo before? You can just put in the chat whether or not you've used Milo. Okay, so a little mix, looks like. Okay, mostly no. A couple yes, but mostly no. That's fine. So it's good to be aware that Milo's there. You will probably mostly be searching in nursing-specific databases, but what Milo does is, the reason it's a big old circle that sort of surrounds everything is Milo is sort of like Google for the library. If we're going with the crane game analogy again, imagine that we've taken all of the prizes from all of those different crane games and we've dumped them into one giant crane game. So when you search in Milo, you're searching all of the databases, all 117 of those, as well as the tangible content within the library. So it's a big search engine. It's going to search everything that we have access to. It's going to bring you a lot of results. It's good to know that's there if you are having issues with the subject-specific databases and you're not having a ton of luck, and we will take a look at that later. Any questions about this chart or how the hierarchy of the different things work? You can go ahead and put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. Okay, so let's move on and look at how to access these different tools. Okay, can everybody see the main library website here? Okay, thank you for your feedback. I'm still getting used to using Zoom with this many participants. So this is our main library website. What you're looking at here, you can get here from anywhere on the Delhi website by going to the Academics tab and then clicking on Resnick Library. There also is a page in Banco Hall, and you can access it from there as well. So when you are on this main page, you'll scroll down and you'll see Milo here. Milo is on the main page front and center because, like I said, it searches everything, and it is useful to pretty much anybody who stumbles across our website, no matter what their major is or what they're looking for. As I said, searching in Milo can be a little bit overwhelming because it is searching everything. So everything that you search in CINAHL or one of the smaller databases will also show up in Milo. But when you search in Milo, you're going to find that you get thousands, if not millions of results, and they can be kind of hard to parse through and sort of narrow things down to get what you want. So we're going to start by just searching on the specific database. We're going to look at CINAHL. And there's a couple of different ways to get there. If you remember and you know that CINAHL is the one that you want, you can click on Find Databases A to Z. Go to the C section, and it's the second link. It says CINAHL Plus with full text. If a couple days or a couple weeks or months from now you say, gosh, I remember that Kate was talking about a nursing database, but I don't remember the name of it, that's okay. You can go to Find Articles by Subject. It's the middle button next to Milo. And what we've done here is we've taken all of those databases, and instead of having you go through alphabetically and try to find which ones pertain to nursing or another subject, we've arranged them by subject. So you can go ahead and click on Nursing and Health. And these are all of our nursing and health databases. CINAHL is the second one. You look at that and say, gosh, that's the one that she was talking about, and you can go ahead and click through. So that'll take you here, which is the main interface for CINAHL. And this is going to bring you much more relevant results than Milo most of the time. An example I like to give, if you're doing research on diabetes and you search in Milo for diabetes, Milo, like we said, is going to search everything. So you will get results about diabetes in humans, but because we have VetSci databases too, you might get results about diabetes in cats or dogs or another animal. So that's kind of the advantage of searching in just a smaller pool of the resources that we have that you know are related to nursing. So let's take a look at searching in CINAHL. This is where we start to talk about search strategies. So how many of you have been asked at some point to access a peer-reviewed article? And if it's for nursing, it'll probably be from the past 5 years. Hopefully, yeah, that's sounding a little familiar to you guys and seeing in the chat. Can anybody explain quickly what peer review means? You can type it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. What does peer review mean? Give you a minute. Okay, somebody said academic or professional review. Any article that has been written and reviewed by other scholars. These are good answers. Scholarly article. Yeah, so you guys are on the right track. Oh, we got one more. Peer-reviewed is a published study that has been reviewed by other scholars in the field. Yes, very good. So what peer review is if you write an article, you do some research, you write an article, you want to publish it in a journal. You send it to the journal, and that journal sends your manuscript out to people who are experts in the topic that you did your research on, and experts in that field. They're going to review your work, and they're really just going through it with a fine-tooth comb. They're looking at big picture things like, does your hypothesis make sense? Did the methods you use make sense? As well as other smaller things like, how does this chart look? Maybe that font should be something different. It would make it more easy to read. Things like that. And it's probably going to be sent back and forth a few times where they send you recommendations, you make some changes, and basically all it means is that by the time you as a researcher see it, when you are doing research for your classes, by the time it's published, a lot of eyes have been on it, and you know that it's legitimate, and it is basically sound research that you can trust. So one way to tell if something's peer-reviewed is that for every article you find, you could go and Google that journal and see if it's been peer-reviewed. But a much easier way is, in most of our databases, there's a little checkbox that says peer-reviewed. In CINAHL, it happens to be like halfway down the page. In Milo, it's not on the main page on the library's website where you type your search into Milo, but once you run your search, you will have the option on the left side. You'll see the checkbox, and then you can narrow down your results from there. But if you check that peer-reviewed box, it means that the database isn't going to bring you anything that hasn't been through that peer review process. Another thing, you can limit by publishing date. As I said, you guys are usually expected to use articles from the past 5 years to make sure it's up-to-date research. So that would take us back to September 2014, and we can limit through to 2019. And so that is ensuring that everything we see in our results is going to be from the past 5 years, and it's going to be peer-reviewed. So let's talk about what you're going to type into this search bar. I'm going to use an example of a question that we actually did get at one point. A nursing student was doing research on the classes and grades of cellulitis. So, you know, you can start your search by searching kind of like you would in Google. So you could just type in classes and grades of cellulitis, and it might bring you some good results. Our databases are getting smarter and smarter, and as they improve, you're able to search them more like you would in Google. You don't have to take extra measures to make sure that the database understands all the time. This might get you perfectly good results. So let's test it out. We'll see how many results we get. Okay, so this list of results tells me I have 7 results, but I'm getting this little red message that says your initial search query did not yield any results. So that tells me that when I typed this in, the database didn't find anything that matched that. But now the database is trying to guess what kinds of articles will be useful for me. So, you know, I'm looking at these and they're not necessarily what I need. They're related to cellulitis, but it doesn't sound like they're talking about specifically the classes and grades, things like that. So you may have to adjust your search a couple times. You probably will, more often than not. You're going to do searches that fail. That's entirely part of the process. I do searches that fail all the time. And it's part of figuring out, you know, what kinds of words and terms your authors are using when you do this research. So we'll go ahead, and an option that you can use to tweak your search is using this advanced search button. And that'll take you to a page that looks similar to the first one we looked at, but you'll see you have multiple search boxes, and this can kind of help you to break down your search strategy. And you can add as many as you want, really. What you want to do with these boxes is it's helpful if you can group like terms together. So classes and grades kind of mean the same thing, but cellulitis is something different, so I can move that down here. I also see that I have the word of here. I can get rid of that because the database generally throws out those little small words like a, and, of anyway. It's not going to look at that, so we don't need it there. There are 3 exceptions to this rule, and they are listed right here. The words and, or, and not mean something different to the database, and it has to do with how you're grouping these terms. So these are preset to and. What and is going to do is when you type in different search terms and connect them with and, it sort of tells the database, okay, we have to have results that include this term and this term. It has to have both. So if we're thinking about it like a Venn diagram where the circles overlap, it's those articles that are in the middle that have both. So you are going to be mostly concerned with and then it's also good to know how or works. Or is a term that you can use to connect terms that kind of mean the same thing. So as I said, classes and grades pretty much mean the same thing. So I'm going to change this to classes or grades. If I left it at classes and grades, it would require the database to pull articles that included classes and grades. It has to talk about both. Whereas for what I'm concerned with, that basically means the same thing. So I can connect them with or. You could also put classes and grades here and then just change this to or, and it would do the same thing. But now what this search is telling the database is I need classes or grades. So it can have either one. So if we're going back to the Venn diagram, if one circle is grades, one is classes, it's everything. Everything would be shaded on that diagram, both circles and where they overlap. So if it has classes or grades, or if it has both, that's fine. The database will pull it. And then we have and cellulitis, so it has to have either classes or grades or both, and it must talk about cellulitis. Any questions about that? I hope I explained that all right. I know it can get a little bit confusing, but this can really help you when you're narrowing down your search. Okay, so that's how and or work. Another thing that I want to show you is called truncation. So let's say, for instance, there's an article out there called The Classification of Cellulitis. That would be super useful for me. That sounds like exactly what I need. But since I'm searching for classes, classification may or may not show up. As I said, the databases are getting smarter. It's entirely possible that it would show up just because the database would say, yep, classification kind of means the same thing as classes, but it's also possible that it wouldn't work. And it's kind of hard to tell whether or not it's going to work. So there's a way that you can make sure that you're getting all of those words that kind of have that same root. And the way that we do that is with a little asterisk, a little star. So what you're going to do is you're going to type out the base of the word. So whatever that root word is, put an asterisk at the end, and that tells the database, I want any word that starts with that same base. So in this case, it would give us class, classes, classification, classify, classified, classifying, anything that is related to that. So that's kind of a fancy way that you can make sure that relevant results aren't being excluded just because of the word choice that you used. Another example, diagnose. If you put the asterisk after the S, it's going to include diagnosis, diagnose, diagnoses, diagnosing, anything that starts with that same root word. You want to be careful about where you put your asterisk because, for example, if I'm looking for something and one of my search terms is category, but I also maybe am interested in the ones that say categorization or categorized or categories, even just plural. I'm going to have to be careful about where I put that asterisk because if I just do CAT and then the star, what that's going to do is I'm going to get results that talk about catheterization or catastrophes, anything that starts with CAT. So just be aware of where you are putting that asterisk if you do choose to use this strategy. So I'll come back over here and change this to class with the star just to make sure that nothing gets ruled out. Do you guys have any questions about how I broke this down or using the star, using and or? You can go ahead and pop them in the chat or turn your microphone on. Okay, you guys like the little star. Yeah, it is kind of fancy. It's a really neat way to make sure that you're getting what you want. And you know, the more you do it, the easier it'll become. It'll become second nature to you when you're doing your research, and it'll make things a lot easier on you if you do remember to use those terms. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this search. I'm going to check this box for peer reviewed again. I'm not going to change the date just yet because I want to show you that you can also do that on the next page. So we run the search. We've got 236 articles. We can see over here that they're peer reviewed. So we're getting a lot better results now. As I said, you can change the publication date and narrow things down here as well. You can either use the little sliders or you can just type in 2014, hit enter, and it should go ahead and update. So now we're down to 109 articles, which is still probably a lot more than you want to go through. But if we look at the titles, these are looking like they're much closer to what I'm looking for. So if we go back to our list of things we want to accomplish today, we've talked about CINAHL, we've talked about Milo, and we've talked about search strategy. So we're moving on to number 3. These two are the hardest to understand, so you guys are past the toughest point. The next two are just a little bit easier. You're talking about how to access these things and where to ask for help. So you've done your searching, the hard part's over, now you're just looking at the results and you want to access them. There are a few different scenarios and things that you might see within the database. This first one, we can see there's a link to PDF full text. This is your best case scenario. This is super easy. You click on that button and it's going to open right up and you can read right from here. If you don't want to read it right now, there's a few tools I want to show you. If your box that shows me is overlapping with the tools on the right-hand side of the page, you might want to click and drag to uncover those, because I'm going to be talking about the stuff on the far right. So if you're not going to read this article right now, but you want to save it for later and make sure you can get back to it, there's a number of things you can do. You can click this button, the little arrow, that'll download it to your computer. You can save it. It'll be there when you need it. Another thing you can do is print, either with that button, either of the ones that look like a printer. You can email it to yourself. This is a nice option. You just have to type your email in right here, click send, and it will send you a link to your email where you can get right back here if you don't have time to print or you don't want to, you know, crowd your computer with all of these articles that you'll be downloading. So those are ways to save it for later. Another thing I want to point out on this screen is this little yellow button here. So what you're going to do is click the little yellow button and this will bring you citations. You can pull your citations directly from the database. You want to scroll down to APA. You can highlight, copy, and paste, and most of the work is done for you. This is super handy. One thing I do want to say is always, 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 please double check. I see in the chat you guys are very excited about this. I am glad you're excited because this is so useful. It will save you so much time. Always, always, always double check your citations, but most of the work is going to be done for you. All of the information that you need is going to be there like 99% of the time. The things that you have to double check on are things like capitalization, things like punctuation. Sometimes the journal title will not be in italics when you copy and paste it and you have to change that. Sometimes you have to clean up this link at the end, but that's going to be most of the work for you. Okay, I see one person said that they missed the beginning of the session. Are you able to do this hands-on? Where do I go? Had a hard time finding the link. Don't worry about it. I'm making a recording of this and it should be posted in your class and I'll send it out at the end. So if you missed the beginning, you will be able to rewatch this as many times as your heart desires. So yeah, you can pull the citations directly from the database. Pretty much any database. It's not just CINAHL. A lot of times it will be this little yellow icon. In Milo, it's like a little quotation mark, but it'll always say something like citation or cite it. And again, just make sure you're pulling the one for APA instead of MLA or a different format. Okay? Any questions about pulling the citations from the databases? It's a really nifty tool that I wish I had when I was in college. Will save you a lot of time and tears. And again, if you ever need, if you're not sure about researching and double checking it, you can always send it to a librarian and ask for help. Where is the yellow tab again? Okay, so when you're looking at the article, it's just this little yellow button on the side that says Cite under the little toolbar on the right-hand side. Easy enough to find. Okay, so that's the easiest way. If there's a PDF full text button, you're in luck. It's very easy to access those. Other things you might see, HTML full text, again, that's another easy one. But sometimes you'll see different things. Let me just show you. Sometimes you'll see something that says read this now. This means that we do have access to it, but it's in another one of those databases that you need to go to. You have to find it somewhere else in the library resources. And luckily, we've made this pretty easy. There's just a couple more clicks. So I'll show you. You click read this now. It's going to load another page. And this is actually Milo. There's the quotation citation button. That's what it looks like in Milo, just FYI. So it's going to bring you to this page, and then you'll see under View Online, it says Full Text Availability. And there will be one or more journals listed here. Sometimes you'll find 3 or 5 links. Other times it'll just be one, but that's okay. You only need the one. This just tells me that this article is available in Science Direct, which is a different database. I go ahead and click on that. It's going to open another tab, and it's right here. So I can download the PDF there, but I don't have to do any searching in Science Direct. It should take you right through. And if it doesn't, please contact the library. Sometimes there are glitches, but for the most part, it should lead you right through. So that's what you do when it says read this now. The last scenario I want to talk about is if you see one that just says request through Interlibrary Loan. Sometimes it'll have both. If it has read this now, click that first. But if it doesn't have that or the PDF full text, that means that we have to request it from another library because we don't have access to it right this second. It's not held in any of our databases, but the good news is libraries love to share. So we can borrow it from another library at no cost to you. So what you're going to do is you click request through Interlibrary Loan. It'll take you to this page. If you've never used Interlibrary Loan before, you're going to have to create a new account. I'm sorry, I know you already have a million accounts, but the good news is it's good for the entire time that you're here at Delhi. You create a new account, and once you log in, it'll ask you to fill out a form with information about the article that you want. So things like the title, the author's name, the journal it was published in, when it was published, things like that. Then what happens is you submit your request to us. We send the request out to other libraries, and if the library has it, they will send it to us and we share it with you. Typically, if it's an article, it'll come through, we'll just email it to you with a PDF. It's easy enough to access there. But the question that we always get with Interlibrary Loan is how long does it take? And I don't really have a clean-cut answer for you because a lot of it actually is out of our control. So when we send out that request, it depends on how many libraries have that article. If it's a really rare journal that not a lot of libraries subscribe to, it might take a little while longer. And then again, even if a lot of libraries have it, if somebody says they're going to send it to us, we don't always know how quickly they're going to get around to sending it to us. So once we put the request out there, it's really in the hands of the other libraries, depending on how quickly they can send it to us. Best case scenario, we can get things to you in a day or two, but sometimes it'll take a little bit longer. I know that's frustrating to you guys as nursing students because a lot of times you do have really quick deadlines, and you know, I often have students calling me and saying, oh, well, in a couple hours I have to go to work for 12 hours and then it's due tomorrow, so I really don't have any time for it. In that case, Interlibrary Loan is probably not the best option, but there is a way to avoid seeing those Interlibrary Loan only results, and that's by checking this box where it says full text. If you check that box, it'll get rid of anything that you can't access through Delhi's resources right this second, and you won't have to worry about seeing those. So, any questions about how to access these articles or Interlibrary Loan, anything like that? Okay, so we're on the home stretch now. We just have to talk about how to ask for help. We've tried to make it easy for you guys to get help depending on how you prefer to ask for help. So there's a number of different ways you can contact us. The first are these Ask a Librarian chat boxes. You may have seen them in the databases. There's usually one on our main homepage. Some instructors embed them into Vanco Hall. Basically what this is you can instant message anonymously with one of your Delhi librarians. As I said, totally anonymous. Ask anything library related, even if it's just what time does the library close today, if you need help with search strategies, if you're having trouble accessing an article, if you just want us to look over a citation and make sure it's correct, you can pop it in there and we'll double check it and help you out. The nice thing is this connects you with a Delhi staff member, so they're going to know Delhi's resources. It might be me, it might be a different staff member or librarian. And you also don't have to worry about asking questions in this when we're not available, because this will only show up when we are logged on and available. If all of the library staff are in a meeting, this box won't show up. If it's the middle of the night and you're working on something, this box isn't showing up. But we also have Ask Us 24/7. It's exactly like it sounds, available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's another instant message service, but this one isn't going to connect you with a Delhi librarian. It's going to be a librarian from somewhere else in the world. Excuse me. And they're going to have access to Delhi's databases, so if it is just something about search strategy or trying to find an article for your assignment, they can definitely help you out. If they can't answer the question, you can provide your email and they'll flag it so that we see that the transcript that you had of the conversation that you had with the librarian, and we'll follow up with you by email, usually the next business day. So that is available to you always. We have a text line. If you are out and about in the middle of the day and you have a question, that's a good one to text. It is connected to this Ask a Librarian service, so if you're texting this number in the middle of the night, you're not going to get an answer until morning, unfortunately. Your best bet at that point would be Ask Us 24/7, but if it's during regular business hours, you should be good to go with that one. If you like the more old-fashioned way to contact, this is the general library reference number. They'll get you connected with somebody who can answer your question. You can always email our main Delhi library email address, or if you want to talk to me personally, you have my email. This is my direct line if you want to call me, or I have this website, just show you, where you can book an appointment with me. And this works for you guys too. I can meet with you via Zoom like this, or in person if you happen to be close to campus. What you do is you just click, find a time. This automatically syncs with my Google Calendar. So it shows you what times I'm available. You can go ahead and click one that works for you. Just fill out what you need help with. Tell me whether you want to meet in person or virtually. And once you submit it, it'll go right into my calendar and we can go ahead and meet at the time you selected. So that's a handy one. So those are the main ways that you can contact us. And I will encourage you, contact us before you've been working on something and struggling for hours on end. A lot of times we have students who call us and say, you know, I've been searching for 7 hours now and I'm nearly in tears because I can't find it. Don't make us your last ditch effort to find something. I always tell students, if you've been searching for, say, half an hour and you haven't found anything even remotely close to what you're looking for, that's the time when you want to call me or call the library or use that Ask a Librarian chat. There's no point in wasting your time when maybe I can have like a 10-15 minute conversation with you. We can revise your search strategy. We can get you on the right track. You guys don't have a lot of time to begin with. So always there to help you. A lot of times it can save you a lot of time and effort. So don't be afraid to reach out in any of these manners.